Okay, so when it comes to money on this channel, I feel like there has been a lot of growth. I went from broke shopaholic buried in $120,000 of student loan debt to extreme frugal minimalist, where every single purchase suddenly sent me into a shame spiral, to I feel a really nice middle ground. And for me, when I was drowning in over $120,000 of student loan debt, I'll be honest that I did turn to extreme minimalism and frugality to help me get out of it as fast as I could. Nowadays, I'm more of a believer in having a conscious spending plan, so mindfully spending on the things that you see value in and saving on things that you don't. So in this video, I want to share with you some items that I cut from my budget that I don't miss at all, and items that I decided to bring back in because it sucked way too much not to have them in there. And with this video, I hope it gives you a visual of what my conscious spending plan looks like, on where I see value spending some of my money and where I don't, in which case I can save my money. So let's get into it. And just to get some things out of the way, I do budget every single month, and I still track my spending pretty much on a daily basis. And I will say that in my time of temporary extreme frugality, it really did help me get out of debt faster in the long run. But the main thing, without a doubt, that helped me get out of this debt in the time that I did was increasing my income. I think it's really helpful, no matter what, to evaluate where you may be overspending and where you can cut back temporarily if you have some financial goals that you want to meet. The truth is, most of us don't make enough money to do it all, so it kind of has to be a give and take between cutting some things from your budget and then finding ways to bring in more money. Achieving a financial goal quickly, I think, is a combination of both of those approaches. The first thing that I cut from my budget that I actually don't miss at all was my $275 a month spin membership. I was a spin girly. I was obsessed with it. And the spin membership was something that I wasn't actually willing to cut from my budget when I first started my debt-free journey. That's how important it was to me. I absolutely loved it. Then the pandemic hit, and I even rented a bike at home. I tried, you guys, I really did. Spin just really wasn't the same to me anymore. To be honest, when it came to my fitness, I had created this dependency on having to go to live instructed classes in order to get benefit out of exercising. And through the pandemic, I really proved to myself that that's not true. Now I do a lot of free YouTube workouts. I do a lot of self-guided workouts, but I proved to myself that I don't need to be dependent on an instructor or even the penalty of a cancellation fee to actually go and work out. At the end of the day, exercise for me is about feeling good. It's about keeping away a severe case of the saddies, in the sense that it's really a benefit to my mental health. But I realized I didn't necessarily need to be paying almost $300 a month for it. Number two are Aritzia hauls. I loved and still love Aritzia, but when I was in the depths of my full-blown shopping addiction, before I decided to commit to becoming debt-free, I was easily spending $500 to $1,000 a month at Aritzia. I would either shop online pretty much any chance I could, anytime I was bored, anytime there was a lull during my day, or it would be the first place I went when I had a day off or some time to myself. I would drive over there, and at that point, the girls knew my name. So I thought it would be a point of pride, but I was actually kind of embarrassed by how much money I was spending there every single month. And when I committed to getting out of debt, clothing was the first thing that I slashed from my budget. So my Aritzia budget went from $1,000 a month to $0. And now that I'm debt-free, I have a little bit of wiggle room to spend a little bit more if I choose to. Whereas before, it was almost a tick, almost a compulsion, and this need to keep up with new releases, to look cool. It's nice to get early access to that clientele sale, but I really like having that money in my bank account more. Number three is alcohol. I'd say Jeff and I are not really big drinkers to begin with, but we used to just go out to local breweries, and I'd say our alcohol budget went from anywhere between $30 to upwards of $75 to $100 a month, because we're a little bit hipster, we're a little bit of artisanal snobs. We love, a good microbrew, and that stuff is a little bit more expensive. But two things happened. One, again, the pandemic. A lot of bars, restaurants, things like that did shut down. So those sort of leisure activities that drinking can often be tied to wasn't really happening. And two is that both of us kind of realized that alcohol makes us feel like I really like red wine, but I'm noticing that I get a headache when I drink it pretty much right away. The next day, I feel very foggy and sometimes anxious and out of sorts. And when it comes to beer, even though I love a good microbrew every once in a while, I find after I have some, I feel very heavy, very tired, and I'm starting to not really like the trade-off of that feeling in exchange for that drink. We've actually been drinking a lot of kombucha instead to get that sort of similar feeling, and I don't really miss it. So we'll still have a glass of wine with dinner every now and then, and I'm sure there'll be a sangria or two had this summer. But as for alcohol having a line in our budget, it just doesn't really happen that much anymore with that amount of regularity. Bad coffee. I used to really believe that one of the keys to saving money is to make your coffee at home. I get the whole behavioral argument when it comes to making coffee at home to save money, but if you love your Starbies or you love going to your local coffee shop, go for it. If you guys don't know, when on my debt-free journey, I was an avid disciple of Dave Ramsey. I mean, I'd say I was fairly Dave-ish because I still order takeout and all those things that he says you shouldn't be doing while you're getting out of debt. But in many ways, I tried to adhere to the extreme frugality that Dave is an advocate of, and that included my coffee. But after a while, I was really not into trying to make Folgers taste good. No shade if you like it, but I realized that we value a good cup of coffee. We also value supporting our local coffee shops, and I do like sugary Starbucks dessert drink every once in a while. It's a pure joy. I look forward to making it in the morning, so I'm happy to spend $60 a month on our coffee beans and coffees out on the weekend. And I wasn't seeing a whole lot of value or movement in my finances, and I was spending that little bit less on coffee versus our usual budget. High-end skincare. I struggle with hormonal acne. I am now on prescription medication for it. But before I bit the bullet and actually went and saw a dermatologist, I would try all sorts of moisturizers and tinctures and potions to help treat my acne that I was so self-conscious about. I used to have a ton of scars on my face. I would have acne popping up here all in this area. It was really inflamed, it was painful, and I was obsessed with trying to find any miracle solution for it, which resulted in spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on often very high-end skincare. Turns out all you really need is a good cleanser, a good moisturizer, and sunscreen, bonus vitamin C and retinol, and that can be purchased at a drugstore level. The more I simplified my skin and went pretty much full-on drugstore in my routine. Now I also include some K-beauty products as well as my prescription products. My skin has never been better. One bottle of cleanser costs $12 and it lasts me months versus the little, you can get 100 mils of product and that can cost $175 in itself, and actually in many cases made my skin worse because it was so irritated with all the stuff that I was using. So the more I dialed back and simplified, not only did my skin get better, but I saved a ton of money, and I'm happy to not feel compelled to include high-end skincare in my budget because it's a need, and that's what's gonna keep my skin looking good. Drugstore is often all you need. Vacations. I'm not really much of a travel bug. I'm really not. I mean, I went to Europe for the first time in 2017. That was a really big trip that I loved, but I have never been one to feel compelled to travel out of country once a year or go on some big trip. I mean, the area that I live in, Toronto, there's beaches, there's hiking, and I'm also a creature of habit, so I just like to go home and hang out with my family. And that to me is a good time. So when I was really getting aggressive in my debt repayment, cutting vacations wasn't that big of a deal. So I do foresee travel in my future and in my lifetime, but I don't know, I'm very much a homebody and I'm okay with that. But it's on sale, impulse buys. I love a good sale. It's always great to save a little bit of money, especially if you were planning on buying the thing anyway. For me, back in the day, I would notoriously buy things on sale just because they were on sale. Those it's a good deal impulse buys. Now, I'm not saying I avoid this every time, but I also do try to budget for my impulse buys because I find they usually are on the lower end of a purchase anyway. But those just because impulse buys that usually end up turning out to be clutter or a buyer's remorse item after the fact anyway, I've really minimized since I've changed a lot of my spending habits. Before we finish, a quick word from today's sponsor, Audible. In this video, I talked a lot about having a conscious spending plan. That's essentially spending extravagantly where you see value and cutting mercilessly where you don't. This was a life-changing money concept that I learned from Ramit Sethi, author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And I listened to this audiobook on Audible. Not only is this audiobook full of a wealth, see what I did there, of knowledge, it's narrated by Ramit himself, so you can really hear the passion in his voice about things like developing your own personal finance system and learning about different perspectives and viewpoints on money that will help you build and live your rich life. And you can listen to everything Ramit talks about using Audible. Audible offers an incredible selection of audiobooks across any genre, from bestsellers to new releases, even personal finance. As an Audible member, you can choose one title a month to keep, and the Audible app makes it easy to listen anywhere. Working out, traveling, doing chores, you decide. All Audible members now get access to a huge selection of titles, including audiobooks, Audible originals, and podcasts. I listen to Ramit's podcast on Audible. It comes out every Tuesday, and more get added every single month. So if you're ready to build your very own personal finance system, new members can try Audible free for 30 days. Just visit audible.com/Christina Machash or text Christina Machash to 500 500. That's Christina Machash to 500 500. Thanks, Audible. So those are some things that I cut from my budget that I don't miss at all. Some of them were in the name of saving money, while others were in the name of spending more to get a little bit more enjoyment out of life. And that's the beauty of intentional spending and having a conscious spending plan. You spend where you see value, save where you don't, with the aim to avoid making spending money feel like a constant battle of I should or I shouldn't. You work hard for your money, you deserve to spend it on some things that bring you joy and make life just a little bit more fun or easier every day. So let me know some things that you cut from your budget that you no longer miss, or let me know some things that you actually spend more money on because you're happy to spend that money. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Leave this video a thumbs up if you did like it. It really helps me out so much. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. See you in the next one. Bye.